Welcome to the Deep Dive podcast channel.
Great to be diving in.
Today we're exploring something many people reach out about. Emotional numbness, that kind of foggy or, muted feeling, where you feel present but maybe not fully in life. Have you ever felt like you should be feeling something, maybe joy or sadness, but instead there's just, a void?
It's really common description, that sense of emptiness.
Yeah. So if exploring these kinds of depths of human experience, but in a way that feels both insightful and supportive, if that resonates with you, please do consider subscribing.
We really aim to shed light on this inner landscape, help make complex feelings feel, seen and understood.
And safe to explore, absolutely. So let's begin our deep dive into emotional numbness. We'll look at what it is, what might cause it, how our bodies and minds sometimes use it for protection, which is fascinating, and importantly, how someone might begin to reconnect with their feelings.
And we'll touch on some common questions too, I think.
Definitely. Those FAQs people often have. So let's start with defining it. What is emotional numbness, really?
Well, when we talk about emotional numbness, it's really this fundamental shift, a shift in how we engage with the world and even with ourselves internally.
Right.
It often shows up as feeling detached, not just from, say, sadness, but from the whole experience of having emotions. People often say it's like watching life through glass or some kind of barrier.
Like emotional anesthesia, almost?
Yeah.
Things register intellectually, but the feeling isn't there.
Exactly. The visceral, felt sense is missing.
It's that thing of knowing you should feel something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you're at a party, everyone's happy, but you just feel flat. Or, maybe experiencing a loss without that expected grief hitting you. That feels like more than just being a bit down.
Precisely. That's a key point. While, low motivation or apathy involves maybe a lack of interest, emotional numbness points to something deeper, a psychological and honestly physiological response.
So it's not laziness or just not caring.
Definitely not. It's not a conscious choice, not a lack of willpower. It's often a sign that the system, your nervous system, has become overwhelmed somehow and flipped a switch, a protective strategy.
Okay, so it's different from just managing your feelings, like emotional regulation.
Very different. Regulation is about modulating feelings to stay present, to cope effectively. Numbness is more like pulling the plug, a broad disconnection, often because things just feel like too much.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's get into why that might happen then. What triggers this kind of disconnection? What are the root causes?
Well, a really significant factor is trauma. When someone goes through experiences that are just intensely overwhelming, think abuse, neglect, violence, maybe a profound betrayal, the nervous system can go into what we often call a shutdown mode. It's like a circuit breaker, really, protecting from overload.
So the feeling itself is just too much to bear.
Exactly. The intensity feels unsurvivable. So the nervous system trying to protect the person from more psychological pain just dampens everything down. Numbness becomes the brain's way to minimize the hit.
That really clicks, especially for extreme situations. But I know depression also messes with our emotional world significantly. How does numbness fit in there?
Right. With depression, a core symptom can be anhedonia. That's the inability or maybe severely reduced ability to feel pleasure.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And that can create this pervasive sense of grayness, emotional flatness. The vibrancy just drains out of life. Joy, even normal sadness, feels out of reach.
So the numbness feels similar.
It can feel very much like numbness, yes. That emotional blunting in depression often comes alongside fatigue, hopelessness, maybe those negative thought patterns too.
So depression isn't always crying in obvious sadness.
Not at all. Sometimes it's silence, emptiness, that feeling of disconnection we're talking about.
You also mentioned dissociation earlier. Can you unpack that a bit more? How does that lead to feeling numb?
Sure. Dissociation is basically a sense of detachment. It could be from your body, your thoughts, your feelings, even your surroundings.
Like spacing out.
It can range from that kind of mild, everyday spacing out, yes, to much more severe and persistent states, especially if there's a history of early or repeated trauma.
Okay.
In those cases, someone might feel like they're outside their body, just observing their life, like watching a film.
Wow.
It's a brain mechanism, really, to create psychological distance from something truly distressing. But if that becomes the go-to coping strategy, it can lead to a more generalized emotional detachment. Access to feelings, memories, even your sense of self can get fragmented.
So these are all pretty major responses to overwhelm. You mentioned the nervous system's role there. Can we dig into that a bit more? How does it react, and why is numbness seen as protective?
Absolutely. So we all know about fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
But there's another crucial survival strategy, the freeze response or shutdown.
Yeah.
This is often linked to a part of the nervous system called the dorsal vagal complex.
Dorsal vagal.
When fight or flight doesn't seem possible or maybe feels unsafe, the system can shift into this state of profound withdrawal. Physiologically, your heart rate might drop, blood pressure too. You might feel immobilized.
And emotionally numb.
And emotionally numb, yes. Disengaged from what's happening outside, but also from your internal feelings. The priority in that state is just conserving energy, surviving what feels like an overwhelmingly unsafe world.
It's almost like feeling itself has become the danger signal.
You've hit it exactly. If the brain learned, especially early on, that feeling things or expressing them led to bad outcomes like punishment, rejection, abandonment, it can basically decide, okay, feeling is not safe. Let's just not. In environments that felt emotionally unsafe, numbness becomes this adaptive strategy. The unspoken rule is, to survive here, I can't feel too much.
And that gets wired in over time.
It can become deeply ingrained, yes, a default mode. And that's why it's so important to understand emotional numbness isn't a character flaw. It's not weakness. It's actually a sign of resilience. It's saying, I've been through something too big, too much, too fast, and this is how I protected myself.
That's a really compassionate way to look at it. Honoring the defense first.
It's often the vital first step, yes, recognizing its purpose.
Okay, so it served a purpose, maybe kept someone safe. But what are the downsides? What are the hidden costs of staying disconnected long term?
Well, while it protects in the moment, prolonged numbness does have significant costs.
Yeah.
One of the biggest is difficulty connecting deeply with other people.
Because you're numb to the good stuff, too.
Exactly. Numbness rarely targets just pain. It tends to dampen the whole spectrum. Empathy, warmth, joy, excitement become harder to access, harder to express.
So partners or friends might feel shut out.
They might feel shut out, yes. Intimacy becomes really challenging. Building that sense of emotional safety in a relationship is tough when one person isn't fully there emotionally.
Yeah, that makes total sense. If you can't really feel your own emotions, how can you connect with someone else's? What about the impact on just yourself, your own life?
Internally, that loss of connection to emotions often leads to a profound sense of meaninglessness. Things just lose their color.
Like joy draining away.
Joy, motivation, yeah. Activities, hobbies, relationships, goals that once felt important or fulfilling, they can start to feel empty, hollow.
Like going through the motions.
Precisely. Without that internal emotional compass, people can feel adrift, apathetic, kind of lost, even if, on the surface, everything looks fine. And there's another layer too, what we might call emotional self-abandonment.
What do you mean by that?
When you're cut off from your feelings, you lose touch with your gut instincts, right? Your desires, your needs. It becomes hard to know what you want or what's right for you.
So setting boundaries would be difficult.
Incredibly difficult. Trusting your intuition, advocating for yourself, all that relies on having some connection to your inner emotional world. Numbness cuts that connection.
Wow. So, okay, it starts as protection, but can really limit life over time, affecting relationships, meaning even your sense of self. Which leads us to the big question. If someone is experiencing this, how do they even begin to reconnect? Where do you start?
It's a really important question, and the key words are usually gradual and gentle. Safety is paramount. You can't force feeling back online.
Right.
One really crucial path is through somatic awareness, basically reconnecting through the body and focusing on regulating the nervous system.
Somatic, meaning body-based.
Exactly. Gently bringing attention back to physical sensations without judgment, using practices that help the nervous system feel safe enough to maybe ease off the brakes a little.
What kind of practices are we talking about, like mindfulness?
Mindfulness is part of it, yes. Things like body scan meditations, just noticing sensations. Also, simple grounding techniques, feeling your feet on the floor, noticing textures, sounds. Gentle movement can help too, and breath work. Mindful breathing can be very powerful for calming the system.
So it's about slowly, carefully listening to the body again.
Reacquainting yourself with its language, exactly, creating a foundation of safety in the body so emotions feel less threatening when they do start to bubble up.
Okay. What about more formal help, like therapy?
Absolutely. Trauma-informed therapy approaches are often incredibly helpful here because they get that connection between past overwhelm and present disconnection.
Right.
Modalities like somatic experiencing or SEEMDR, internal family systems, IFS, sensor motor psychotherapy, attachment-based work, they're all designed to help process those past experiences safely.
Without re-traumatizing someone.
That's the goal, to gently unravel those protective freeze responses and help rebuild trust with your inner world, slowly and carefully.
And if someone isn't ready for therapy or wants to try things on their own first, are there less formal things?
Yes, definitely. Just cultivating mindfulness and presence day to day can be a great start. Again, it's not trying to feel, it's learning to notice what is there, even if it's subtle, with curiosity.
Like noticing faint tension instead of just nothing.
Exactly, building tolerance for those small internal shifts. And things like creative expression, journaling, drawing, music, whatever, can be a really safe way to explore what's inside without needing words right away.
Like a gentle reunion with yourself.
That's a lovely way to put it. Approaching it like meeting a long-lost friend with patience, kindness, and curiosity.
This is all really helpful context. Now, you mentioned we'd touch on some FAQs. People often ask, for instance, is emotional numbness just the same thing as depression?
Yes, that's a really common question. And understandable because there's overlap. But no, they're not identical.
Okay.
While numbness can be a symptom of depression, as we said, it can also stem from trauma, dissociation, or that nervous system shutdown state. Even without a full depressive episode, the cause can be different.
Got it. Another big one. Can this actually be healed? Can people feel fully again?
Yes, absolutely. It takes work, the right support, time. It's often not a straight line. But yes, regaining a fuller connection to emotions is definitely possible. There is hope.
That's encouraging. What about people who find they literally can't cry anymore or feel things deeply? What's going on there?
That often points directly back to that nervous system protection we discussed. The system is still holding tight, trying to shield from perceived emotional danger.
So the answer isn't to force tears.
Usually not. It's more about creating that safety, using somatic work, therapy perhaps, to gently help the system understand it's okay to let go a little. Reconnection has to be gradual.
Right. And medication. We sometimes get asked if meds can help with the numbness itself.
Medication, especially antidepressants, can help sometimes, particularly if the numbness is clearly linked to clinical depression. They can help stabilize mood.
But they don't fix the root cause necessarily.
Not usually on their own, especially if the root is trauma or dissociation. Medication might ease some symptoms, making it easier to do the deeper work in therapy or with somatic practices, but it often doesn't resolve the numbness directly. The healing often involves addressing those underlying patterns.
Okay. So for someone listening now, recognizing this feeling in themselves, wanting to take a step, what's a good manageable first step?
I think a crucial first step is just noticing. Acknowledging the numbness without judgment, getting curious about it instead of criticizing yourself for it.
So less what's wrong with me and more, I notice I'm feeling numb right now.
Exactly. That curiosity opens the door. From there, maybe some gentle self-reflection journaling perhaps, or just paying attention to tiny body sensations throughout the day, or, of course, considering reaching out to a therapist who understands trauma and dissociation.
And just to circle back, is it fair to say this is often fundamentally a trauma response?
Yes, very often. It's widely understood as a common, though often misunderstood, consequence of unresolved, overwhelming experiences. The mind and body learned that intense feeling wasn't safe, and numbness became the coping mechanism.
Recognizing that link feels really key.
It can be incredibly validating and empowering, yes. A starting point for understanding and healing.
So emotional numbness, as we've really unpacked today, it's so often not a failing, but a sign of a resilient system doing its best to cope with overwhelming experiences.
Precisely. A pause. A protection. Not necessarily a permanent state.
And the journey back towards feeling, it's a gentle one. It really requires patience, self-compassion.
Definitely. Kindness towards yourself is crucial.
Please remember, if this resonates, that the capacity for feeling, for connection, it does reside within you, even if it feels distant right now. We really hope this deep dive has offered some clarity, maybe a new perspective on your own experiences, or perhaps those of people you care about.
Hope it's been helpful.
And if you found this exploration valuable, we'd be really grateful if you'd subscribe for more conversations like this, exploring our inner lives.
We look forward to continuing the journey.
Absolutely. We look forward to continuing this journey of understanding together.